Say my name. I am awake. I am the danger. I am the one who knocks.
Welcome to the next episode of Breaking In to Breaking Bad with Clifford and Caleb Humphrey. Today, we're discussing Season 3, Episode 5, Mas. You will recall a few episodes back, there's an episode called No Mas. So we're led to think that this is a kind of response to that episode. So before we get into it, though, let's give a brief recap about what happens in this episode. So a number of really important things happen in this episode. I think this is a pivot episode in the whole story. So the long and short of it is Walt decides to get back into cooking meth, which is something he said up and down he wasn't going to do. But by the end of the episode, he's decided he's going to take up Gus Fring's offer to spend 3 months cooking for $3 million. Before he gets there, though, there's a lot that happens. This episode focuses a lot on Skylar and her dynamic with Ted and how Ted is a kind of a pawn in her manipulation game with Walt. And then I would say the main character of this episode in a lot of ways is Hank. You can tell me what you think about that, Cabes, but this episode kind of shows the story of how Hank is letting the case with Heisenberg become utterly obsessive. And he's starting to lose touch with reality in a way. He doesn't know when to turn work off. It's just constantly just working all the time trying to find Heisenberg. He's wrestling with the fact that he lost the opportunity to go to El Paso. And not only that, but his partner, Steve Gomez, is going in his place, which was kind of a big hit for him, but he's aware that that's a choice that he made. And Jesse is having to accept the fact that Walt, by choosing to get back into cooking meth, leaves him out in the cold. He's a nobody. And Walt's choice to work with Gus, and we know now, we kind of always knew that when Gus decided to buy some of Jesse's blue meth, it was just a ploy to get Walt back, and that was a very good ploy. It worked completely, and Gus is now able to work one-on-one with Walt, and Jesse is leveraged out of the game completely. So that's about it. Anything else major happened in this episode you think we should mention?
No, that was pretty good synopsis of it.
Okay, well let's start with the title then, Mas. Like I said, this mirrors the episode No Mas in some ways. Any thoughts?
It's basically Walt going from, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be involved in this. I want my family back. I've made a bad decision in life. I don't. Ultimately, it was for, a good reason in his mind, and he wanted to go back to how things were. But in this episode, you kind of see that he is kind of missing that life, but also come to terms with how life is now because of the choices he's made. And now his life is just not really fun anymore. It's not enjoyable. It's not anything that he wanted. And now he's basically saying, well, I can at least be a different person, as in Heisenberg, and enjoy life, and still have that same goal of providing for his family, and in being, taking the going back into the cooking. So that's at least what I came from it.
Wow, Cabes, that was that was beautiful. That was really good. Yeah, so I went back and listened to our episode that No Mas, just the beginning where we discuss the title, and we say there exactly what you said, that No Mas refers to his decision to cook no mas. I'm not going to be cooking anymore. And so here, when he's decided he's going to get back into cooking, it is appropriate to call this episode Mas. I don't really think there's much else that you could say relates to the more in this episode, but because that's the weaning fact, is that Walt's gonna he's going to do it now. Whether it's for the same reason that he had before or a different reason, we don't know. And I think we can get into that a little bit, because it's not immediately clear that he's going to die imminently, any day now. So there's less of a rush need, emergency to accumulate funds. But he might still think, I'm not just going to make sure my family has enough to get by, but he's going to set them up. You could say that's maybe what he's thinking right now. We don't know. I should say one big fact that we should mention is that at the end of the episode, Walt signs the divorce papers.
Yeah.
Now
we'll talk about that when
we'll talk about it, but we just gotta note that, because it seems as though he's, I don't know, letting Skylar kind of just letting her go, and he's gonna continue to cook and go his own way. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the intro. So this intro is wow. I didn't see this one coming. So it flashes back.
I did. Just
yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. So it flashes back to the scene where Walt says, when Jesse asks him, "Why are you doing this? Why did nobody just breaks bad?" And he says, "I'm awake." And he says, "You know what? Here's how much money? $7,000."
That was like just under 7,000.
Yeah, he's like, "Here, go buy an RV so that we can cook out in the desert with it. And I'm awake now. I see things. I'm aware of things now. So here you go, druggie. Go take my almost $7,000 and spend it." And he tells him, I thought it was interesting. He says, "Well, the guy I have in mind wants at least 8. Like, this isn't enough." And Walt says 2 things. He says, "This is all I have in the world. This is all of my savings, and I'm giving it to you. I'm entrusting it to you, Mr. Drug Addict." And then he says, you're a drug dealer. Negotiate." Right? It's that same kind of, you're a businessman, make a deal, approach things on a rational basis, and see if your contact will maybe compromise and come down in price.
Well, it's crazy because it just shows how naive and amateur he was to know exactly that, Jesse is in the drug trade, and he was literally emptied his entire life savings and just gave it to him. Just completely, just here you go, negotiate. Like he completely just trusted him on all of that.
Yeah,
I just,
right.
It just shows the level of amateurness that he was at that time to compared to where he is now. Yeah, it was.
Well, what's funny, the way they wrote the story is that we all thought Jesse was totally responsible, above board. He took that money, he went and negotiated, and he got the RV. And that's what happened. What this intro shows us is, of course, what really happened when he got that money. He called up his best friends, Skinny Pete, Combo.
Not Badger,
just
though.
The 3 of them.
Like, what? Why not Badger?
Yeah, no, Badger's got to be pissed. He missed out on that.
No, but here's the
night.
thing. If you remember, he hadn't really spoken to Badger in a while, because later on, you see him see Badger
that's
again
right.
for the first
That's
time.
right.
Spinning the sign. He goes, "Badger,
And
I haven't seen you since high school." And then he brings him back into the fold.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So they did a good job with not conflicting that.
So we learn that Jesse takes the $7,000, goes to a strip club, and spends almost all of it.
Mm-hmm.
On one night, and he's gloating that I got this money. Some stupid old man just gave it to me, and I'm going to just take advantage of him completely. So a lot of things flow from that. We know now that Walt and Gus are completely justified in never trusting Jesse. Now, I want to say that. On the other hand, Jesse says when he's the next morning, he says, "Oh no, I can't believe I just did that. I've only got like $1,400 left," and he's upset. And he says, "This guy, this old man, is blackmailing me." And then we remember, oh, that's right. Walt threatened to turn him over to the cops
Yeah.
for being a part of that meth drug bust at the beginning. And so we remember that Walt kind of had an original injustice against Jesse to begin with. And so Jesse, in a way, is they're kind of in a state of war,
Yeah.
right? Where Jesse doesn't know at any time Walt could turn him over to the police. At any time, Walt has the power to do that, right? And so from Jesse's perspective, they're at war. He can do whatever he wants. And so he gets a chance to screw Walt over, he's going to do it. Why shouldn't he? He doesn't know. That might be his last night, before he goes to prison. So on one hand, they're both kind of justified, but it is kind of alarming. And now we see the chain of events. So Jesse gets really distraught that he doesn't have an RV to show to Walt, who trusted him. And Combo says, "Well, I can get you an RV." And we learned that he steals his mother's RV.
Right. Well, if you notice also, if you back up to in the strip club to the what he was actually saying throughout the whole thing, you could tell that he was really trying to earn almost earn the respect and be seen as higher of a status than he was
Mm.
in the strip club, because he was saying things like, "Hey, like I want the Don Perignon Don, like champagne, and oh, they're $400 a bottle. Like, yeah, I want two of them, and I want the skinny glasses." And he was making sure that everyone, his buddies, Combo and Skinny Pete, saw him. So it was very important to him that they recognize him as this person that he's obviously not. And then when in the morning, like you said, and he's telling Combo like, this is actually what's going on, and it wasn't just this guy gave it to me, but he's actually blackmailing me. This is what I need. And Combo, being Combo, didn't
Nice
really
guy.
care about what's going on, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we see later that he did sell off his mom's RV, so it worked out for Jesse's sake. But it it was very telling to see Jesse really try extremely hard to show his status that was not really his per se.
Yeah. Yeah. And we remember also when he got his townhouse next to Jane and they come over for the first time and he's like, "Yeah, like, gonna get like a plasma." And like he's
Yeah.
he's really trying to impress people all the time.
Yep.
And it's definitely a character flaw. I don't think we see the same character flaw in Walt. He doesn't seem to care his, what car am I driving? Is that going to impress people, right?
Yeah, we see
Walt,
flaws, just not that one.
of course, of course. Yeah. Well, Walt's flaw comes, to the fore in this episode too. He's furious that Jesse would cook his formula. It's his formula, right? And
Is he upset that it's his formula, or is he upset that Jesse cooks it just as good as he does?
yeah, right.
Maybe a little
Right.
both.
No, right. So when he sits down with Gus and Gus says, "Well, he delivered a product that was more or less the quality we've come to expect." That's exactly the button. And what's funny, that whole conversation with him, we're jumping ahead way a lot here, but that's okay. Walt is so transparent about Gus's transparency. He's like,
Yes.
"I know exactly what you're doing, and this is what I'm thinking. You're trying to make me think this, and I'm thinking this actually right now." but it's not going to work.
Yeah, it was. Oh, I don't know if that was brilliant or what, because you see it.
It could be sloppy, but because it was worked so perfectly. But
It was,
and Gus
but then,
doesn't hide it. He's like, well, yes. That's
right,
why
but
it's exactly
he
why we
also
did it.
plays it on. It was so it was reminiscent of a like of a teacher child conversation where a teacher was
Mm-hmm.
trying to convince a child that, hey, this actually is the best thing to this toy is so much better than that toy
Right,
because X,
right,
Y,
right,
and
right.
Z. and
No, it's like Tom
he like
Sawyer and the
in
whitewashing
the
of the
fence.
fence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So he caught on to it, and he said it, and he knows that he was actually pulled by it, and then he relies on, and he says this, I respect the chemistry too much
yeah, yeah. No, no,
to
no.
fall
Yeah,
for
no.
such, silliness. But
Right,
we know that
right.
he 100% falls for it and is just using that as a crutch.
Yeah, no, no, no. I just I got really into it when he said that because he says you're. I mean, it's important to note the words that he uses. He's talking about Gus. He says, you think that I have an overweening pride that's going to cloud my judgment. And if you can trigger that pride by telling me that Jesse is just as good a chemist as I am, then I'm going to have my judgment clouded and I'm going to agree to cook meth for you. And he says, I am not. In other words, what he's saying is, I don't have overweening pride. I just have this really great respect for the chemistry. And he says, the chemistry must be respected.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So he like anthropomorphizes, if I can say it that way, like chemistry into this, like it's this like no not it's not an abstract thing. It's this living being. We must respect chemistry. It's and he puts it in the passive voice. It must be respected, not I respect chemistry. He
I'm the
does say
hero
it
in
before, but
this, and you're welcome. That's it.
right. But it's so funny. It made me think of Anthony Fauci. Do you remember back in 2021? I think it was when Fauci said, "I am the science." Right? He's like, I don't have. It was like he was saying, I don't have overweening pride in the way that I'm able to leverage, my authority in this pandemic to be able to tell people what to do. I don't have overweening pride there. I just respect the science. I'm just
Yeah.
and he's like, in fact, I am the science. Like
Wow.
I thought,
I
wow,
didn't
like
really think about that. Yeah, you're right.
that's exactly the position that Walt puts himself in here. Like, not only does he say he respects the science, but no, he knows the science. In fact, he is the science. He is the chemistry, right?
Yep.
And so no one else gets to do it. And I think am I wrong? Like, it's exactly that kind of moral argument that Gus makes that wins him over. Because he takes him down to the lab. He shows him the lab. He shows him all of the shiny, equipment that he bought. And Walt is kind of impressed. He's very impressed.
Yeah, he's very impressed at that. He's
That
like,
Gus
how did you even know how to put this up?
Yeah, right. And Gus is like, this is all. I mean, it's almost like I don't know why it's coming to my mind in a way, but when Christ is in the wilderness and he's tempted by Satan, 3 times, in the last temptation of Christ, Satan takes him to the mountain at the top and he says, look at the kingdoms of the world. And he says, all of these will be yours if you will just bow before me. And in a way, Gus kind of takes Walt to the lab and says, all of this is under your command, and I will give you this if you will work for me for 3 months, and I will give you $3 million, and you will get to be the kingpin. And I think that's what he sort of weaves this image. You'll become a very important, powerful person in this enterprise. But then he adds this other element, which is fascinating. He tells him, you want to be a man, don't you, Walt? Like, what does a man do? And he twists all this stuff, and he uses the exact logic that Walt used before, uh, namely that the ends justify the means. He says, "Why did you do all this?" He says, "Well, for my family." He's like, "And you were right." And Walt says, "Wait, no, I wasn't. I lost my family because I did all those things." Right? And Gus says, "No, no, no, no. Like, even if you lost your family, it was still the right thing to do because
Right.
a man provides for his family, even if he loses his family."
Right. Well, he was hitting on like the sacrifice that a man does, regardless of the outcome. And I feel like that because Walt put up he put up a stop and he was like, nope, I'm still not going to do it. And
I'm still not going to do it. Right.
when he said that phrase to him, like a Walt, I mean, a man provides for his family regardless. And, then it cuts out. We're just, taken to assume that won him over because the next scene we see him, all in at that point.
Yeah. No, no, that's it's important that we don't get to know Walt's response and we're left guessing. And the whole
Right.
rest of the show now we're going to have to guess what was the logic, the reason that won Walt over, because he leaves that lab and immediately goes back home, gets his things, signs the divorce papers, and like says like I'm off. So there was something in his brain that clicked, and he said, "This is what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm going to do it."
Well, it
And
was a little,
we have to figure that out.
yeah. And it was kind of broken down in this episode, but really it's a culmination of the last couple episodes. Yes, like you bring in Skylar, who's IFT right now with Ted, and
Hmm.
uh, he's just not the same person that he was in the last 2.5 seasons. He does not want to be the Walt that he was. He wants to be the Heisenberg. As dangerous as it is, he enjoys that lifestyle of not knowing what's going to happen and let's figure this out as we go, and also being a mentor to Jesse and being this father figure, but also being the scientist and the chemist and doing all these things. And
Yeah.
he immediately got rid of all of that. Let's just like a snap, like it's gone. And now
Okay. Yeah. Right.
he's just nothing, like at all. He doesn't have his Heisenberg persona. He doesn't have anything. He doesn't even have his wife. He doesn't have anything left over. It's just like back to season 1, episode 1, and he does not like that at all. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No. It's right. I mean, you're highlighting why this is such an important question to ponder. Why is Walt doing this? And we're not going to be able to answer it now, but we have to just bear it in mind throughout the rest of the show. But he's not going to get this is not the way to make things go back to the way they were. And maybe he's accepted they can't go back the way they were. He has now fundamentally changed things and they can't just go back. We should move on to the rest of the episode. But I think we're both in agreement. This is a pivot episode. Things are
Right.
different from here on out. And
Right.
and we'll probably think back and point back to this episode as when things kind of took the turn that they go on. So okay, Hank. So Hank's obsession is manifesting in some funny ways, right? When he's trying to track down the RV because he knows there's like 28 of them that are registered in the state of New Mexico, and one of them was the one that Jesse was driving when he went up to that gas station in the last episode. So we see him crawling on top of this RV to spy on this poor old couple who's like playing cards at night, and he's embarrassed. And I wasn't really sure how that worked because he spies on them and it's nighttime, and obviously he's working there with Gomi, and the old couple is old and they're still up, so it can't be like really late. So it's like I don't know, 8 o'clock at night. And then the next thing we know, he's talking with them in the morning, saying everything's fine, everything's good. Like, did it take like 8 hours? So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
what in the world?
It's actually a good point. It was yeah. I guess it's left up for the viewer to decide. What does he say?
Yeah,
It's like, oh, he was a IFW. I think he said something like
yeah, no, VFW, veteran of foreign wars.
right.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
good guy. You know,
he's a good
yeah,
guy.
right. Well, but it just shows the kind of comic lengths that Hank is going to now to find this RV. The scene when he comes back and he's in the shower and Marie's trying to talk with him. Man, Marie looked really sane. Like Marie looked totally normal.
100%. Right.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it does do one of those weird things where it focuses in on her sugar things that she's putting in the coffee that you'd
mm-hmm,
noted before.
mm-hmm.
But she's coming off like a very normal, sane person. Like, hey, Hank, I just want to understand. I care for you. You need to sleep. You need to eat. I want to know, what are you thinking? Are you feeling really disappointed that Gomi got this position that you didn't get? And why are you obsessing about this one case? And he's getting super defensive, and he's like, "Never, no one believes me. This is important, and I'm doing hard work." And so the defensiveness is really coming off, like it's off putting, and
Yeah.
making
No.
us really start to doubt him. Like, I don't think
No.
you have.
Yeah. No. This was a pretty important episode because we've discussed in the last few episodes, like, is Hank so obsessed with this Heisenberg case that he does not want to go to El Paso, or is it a combination of maybe he's just so traumatized by what he experienced in El Paso to not go back there, and he's using the Heisenberg case as
Right.
a crutch? Like, it's a little bit of both, and we really see in this episode, this part where he's in the shower, you can almost tell that he's trying to come up with whatever excuse he could give to not go to El Paso, because let's be honest, and he mentioned this, like, it's not a macho thing to not go to El Paso, and Hank is a macho guy. So for
Mm-hmm,
him
mm-hmm.
to pass up on this, regardless of it, he has to come up with some kind of story where it's not valid anymore. But
Right.
he also has to make it sound like he is not just he's really interested in this case, which he is. He definitely is. But what is, if it's a 50-50 scale, is it 51% he's interested in the Heisenberg case and 49% I don't want to go to El Paso? Or is it like, you know what? I'm just scared to death of what I experienced in El Paso. I don't want to do that again. And I'm a little interested in Heisenberg.
Yeah, I
It's
might
tough.
disagree with you. I don't, maybe I don't, and you obviously know the character better, but I think he does want to go back to El Paso. He does want to end up in DC. He wants to be super important. He's got ambition, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get that glory,
I
so
would
that
say
he can
whatever it
rise.
takes.
Well, he's willing to do a lot, and I think he's even willing to go to El Paso. I think he's in deep agony that he can't do both. He wants both, but he can't
Sure.
have both, so he has to choose one. And so and I like that Marie says to about him to Skylar, it's like something is eating him on the inside. And I think that was really, because that kind of describes Walt in some ways too.
Yeah,
So it just
absolutely.
shows like there's something kind of similar going on with them. Tell me, when Walt at Gomi's going away party, Walt gives him a little token. What was that?
Yeah, so when his first day in El Paso, and he was sitting behind a guy, and he goes, "Hey, what's up with the trinket thing there?" And he says something in Spanish. The guy responded in Spanish. He goes, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Know your enemy." And it was
Mm-hmm.
a cartel guy, and that's what he says back to Gomi. He goes, know your enemy and everything. And
Yeah.
so it was a little, I couldn't tell if it was more like, hey, I'm really looking out for you, Gomi. I have your best interest in heart. I don't want you to see, I don't want to see you get hurt, because I just saw several people die out there. But there was also a level of, you're going in my spot, and that's my spot. And,
Hmm.
but here you go. Here's something
Know
that,
your enemy.
yeah, know your enemy.
I wonder if we could throw that advice back at Hank, though. Does Hank understand who the enemy is? And in some ways, or maybe in one way, Hank's his own enemy right now, and that he's letting this obsession over this case just completely cloud his thinking, and he's not able to really act well. So I don't know. I'm just throwing out the kind of the irony of him not knowing who the enemy is in his own case, which is partly him. And he's losing his marriage, he's losing his life, his sanity, his serenity. He's losing all of that. So, well, we'll see what happens. By the end of the episode, obviously, he gets the lead with Combo, and he's tracking down Jesse very, very closely. So we'll see what happens there. Could be something big.
What did you think about the whole Skylar Ted?
Yeah, that was the last thing I was going to say. Yeah. Well, it's kind of pathetic that Ted wants a relationship so badly with Skylar, and Skylar's not interested at all. And it's clear that she's using him just to get to Walt. And she tells her lawyer that, basically that's what she's doing. She's like, oh, he's a nice guy. But I thought what was really funny, and my wife actually brought this up when we watched it, and she noticed something when she steps on the bathroom floor of Ted's, and she's like, "Oh, this is so great." He's like, "Yeah, the contractor talked me into it." And he's like, "I gotta be honest." He's like, once you get used to it, it's hard to not have it. And then you'll notice at the very end, the last time she's there, she's enjoying the warmth of the heated floor, and she puts a towel down and she steps on the heated towel. And my wife pointed out, yeah, she's afraid of getting used to it and wanting it and needing it. And I'm thinking, okay, that's clearly meant to apply to other things. Like, she's trying not to get used to Ted. She's like keeping Ted at a distance in the same way that she's keeping the floor at a distance, because she's I don't know. That's the best I could do.
It also mean like she missed her old life before all this, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, I want what we had before.
Yeah, and I think that comes out with the dinner scene when Walt's holding Holly, and she's just very conflicted. And maybe we just leave it there.
Yeah,
that Skylar's very conflicted. We'll see what happens though. Now that he's signed the papers, all bets are off. What's going to happen next?
Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find these episodes on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. And you could follow and contact us on Twitter and Patreon.